Resources Committee held on 6 March 2024. I can see that we have present Councillor Allison, Councillor Brogan, Councillor Buchanan, Councillor Carmichael, Councillor Chalmers. I have apologies from Councillor Cooper. We also have present Councillor Cowan, Councillor Devlin, Councillor Donnelly. I have apologies from Councillor Fagan. We also have present Councillor Ferguson and Councillor Ferguson Miller. I have apologies from Councillor Handybode. Do we have Councillor Horn? Yep, we have Councillor Horn present. We also have Councillor Hose, Councillor Loudon, Councillor MacDonald, Councillor McClymont. I have apologies from Councillor Leslie MacDonald and Councillor Ross Gowland is substituting for her. We have Councillor McDougall present. Do we have Councillor McGeever? Yep, Councillor McGeever is also present. And we also have Councillor Nelson, Councillor Razak, Councillor Ross, Councillor Scott, Councillor Williams, and there are also a number of officers present today. I'll hand back to yourself, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. If we can go on to the first item of business, which is the declaration of interests. Do we have any declaration of interests? Okay, I don't see any declaration of interest. I'll move on to item 2, which is the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 6th of December 23, and it's pages 5 to 14. Okay, if you've had time to read that, is there any questions? If not, I'll ask if the minutes can be approved as a correct record. Agreed? Thank you. We can move on to item 3, which is the minutes of the appeals panel held on the 30th of November and 20th of December 23, the 17th, 22nd, 23rd and 30th of January, and the 8th of February 24. And those are on pages 15 to 28. Any questions on those? Okay, so I'll ask for the minutes to be approved as a correct record. We have a second. Everybody okay? Thank you very much. Moving on to item, okay. Councillor Miller, sorry, I didn't see you.
Thanks, Chair. I just noticed, there was 7 appeals, quite a lot of appeals. Was that a backlog from last year?
Yeah, I'll get Eileen McPaid to speak to that if that's okay, Eileen.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can confirm there was a bit of a backlog, and that was why there was so many appeals that were scheduled over that period of time, Councillor. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, no other questions. I'll move on to item 4, which is the minutes of the recruitment committee held on the 29th of November 23, and that's pages 29 to 30. Can I ask if we can have a seconder for... Okay, any questions on that? Okay, everybody agreed? Thank you very much. And now we move on to monitoring items. The first one is item 5, and it's a revenue and budget monitoring 23-24. That's on pages 31 to 40. And I'd like to invite Jackie Taylor to speak to the report.
Thank you, Chair. This is our revenue budget monitoring, taking us to the 20th of December 2023. If I take you to section 5, which is on page 31, we're reporting our probable outturn position. This is the expectation of where we will end up financially by the end of the year, and we are reporting an expected overspend for the resource budget of £216,000. That relates to the budget that we hold for empty property relief. And you'll recall that this budget is money that was passed over from the Scottish Government in order to meet these costs. The Council is now responsible for meeting these payments. And in the last year, the costs relating to empty property relief have increased, predominantly due to East Kilbride Shopping Centre and the liquidation situation there. There are no proposed transfers to reserves from the resource expected this year. In terms of the financial position, as at the 20th of December, we're working towards that expected outturn and we're reporting an overspend of £179,000. As always, the details for each of the services within the resource are detailed in the appendices, which start on page 33. In terms of the recommendations, we're asking that the overspend is noted, that the forecast for the year in terms of the overspend is also noted, and the environments in the appendices are approved. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jackie. Do we have any questions? Martin Hosey, Councillor Hosey.
Hose, thank you.
Hose, sorry.
Just a question on page, what page am I on? Page 38 of personnel services. There's an overspend of £612,000 on payments to other bodies, and the wee note says it's for employability projects. I wanted to know if we could get some more detail on that. Thank you.
Jackie?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the question. In terms of that overspend, that is recorded under payments to other bodies, as that is the line that we're showing our spend around employability projects. What we were able to do was extend the projects that we undertake for employability for a couple of months, and that's been managed within the overall position for personnel services. As you can see at the bottom of that table, we're reporting an underspend. If you're looking for more information on the projects we undertake on employability, I can get that for you and feed that back.
Thank you.
Are you okay with that, Martin? Yep. Okay. I would like to move the report. Agreed? Okay. Moving on to item 6, which is capital budget monitoring, 23 to 24, pages 41 to 44. And I'd like to invite Jackie again to speak.
Thank you, Chair. So covering the same time period, this report is now dealing with our capital budget for the resource. At section 3.2, I'm reminding committee that the budget we hold for capital is just over £5.3 million. In terms of financial implications, we are expecting that the majority of the budget this year will spend, and we're expecting a slight underspend, and that will be carried forward into the new financial year to complete projects. As at period 10, which is the 20th of December, we are reporting spend of £2.2 million, which is only slightly behind where we expect to be at that point in time. Appendix A shows the summary of the budget that we hold for our capital programme, which is all in our IT services, and the spend that we've made. And in terms of recommendations, we're asking that the capital programme and expenditure to date is noted. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jackie. Any questions? I don't see any questions. I'd like to move the report. Agreed? Thank you. Moving on to item 7, which is the Finance and Corporate Resources Workforce Monitoring, October to December 23. They're on pages 45 to 52, and I'd like to invite Eileen McPake to speak to the report.
Thank you. So this is the standard workforce monitoring report for Finance and Corporate Resources covering the period October to December 2023. So in terms of section 4.1, that outlines the attendance statistics for committee, and the details are in appendix 1. And the resource absence figure for December 2023 was 3.3%, which represents a decrease of 0.2% compared to the previous month, and is 3.3% lower than the council-wide figure. So based on the absence figures at December 2023, the projected annual average for the resource for 23-24 is 3.7%, and that compares to a council-wide figure of 5.3%. In terms of section 4.2 to 4.5, the details are in appendix 2, and the main points are that during the period there was 54 occupational health referrals, there was 1 accident or incident recorded during the period, there was 1 disciplinary hearing, and there was no grievances or dignity at work issues raised during the period. And in terms of leavers, there were 13 leavers that were eligible for an exit interview, and 3 of them conducted, of the 13, 3 conducted exit interviews during the period. And then at section 4.7, there's information in terms of the breakdown of posts that became vacant during the period, and there's more detail of that in appendix 2A. So there was 21 employees who left employment during the period, and managers indicated that 19 of these posts would be filled. There was 1 post that was held pending a review of service, and 1 post that will be removed for savings. And I'm referring committee back to section 2, and asking that the employment information for finance and corporate resources for the period October to December 2023 is noted. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. Any questions? Councillor Donnelly?
Speaking to in reference to 4.5, monitoring analyses of leavers. How many leavers did we have negative reports from? Is my first question. And if we had negative reports, have we looked at a way of learning from the comments that they've made to us? Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Eileen, would you like to answer that one?
Yeah, so in terms of the exit interview report process, there is a number of standard responses in terms of reason for leaving, and I can provide a breakdown of that. I suppose it's open to interpretation in terms of whether that's negative, but certainly we would follow up from any comments made as part of the exit interview process, and we continue to monitor that. But there, as I say, there's a kind of variety of reasons that are there, but I can provide that breakdown if that's required. Thanks.
Yep.
Mary, are you happy with that?
I would like to see the kind of report of the answers that we got back, if that's helpful.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other questions. I would like to move the report. Can we agree? Thank you. If we move on to item 8, which is council-wide monitoring, and that's October to December 23, pages 53 to 74. And again, I'd like to invite Eileen to speak to that.
Okay, thank you. So this is now the standard workforce monitoring report providing employment information for the whole council in terms of council-wide perspective, covering the period October to December 2023. So paragraph 4.1, that's the maximising attendance statistics that are provided, and all of the details, including breakdown across resources, is included in Appendix 1 to 8. So you'll see at section 1 that the council figure for the period is 6.6%, an increase of 0.4% compared to the previous month, and a decrease of 0.4% when compared to the same period for the previous year. In terms of breakdown by occupational group, the AP&T and C figure is 6.7%, the teaching figure is 4.8%, and the manual worker figure is 7.8%. Musculoskeletal and psychological conditions still remain to be the main reasons for absence, and there's a bit more further detail in the body of the report. As expected for this time of year, we also see a bit of a shift in terms of respiratory conditions, but that will probably move up as we move into the next quarter. So members will be aware that managers continue to follow the absence procedures, including ensuring that all the supports are made available to employees in terms of while they're off, and to enable them to return to work as soon as they're able to. And there is a comprehensive list of these supports that are in place in terms of accessible through personnel services, through managers, and absence is also discussed regularly through resource management teams and also at the corporate management team. Moving on then at paragraph 5, in terms of occupational health, again there is more detail in Appendix 9. There was 323 employees that were referred for a medical examination during the period. There was 476 employees that attended physiotherapy, and 72% of them remained at work whilst they were undertaking treatment. There was 540 employees that were referred to the Employee Support Officer. There was 169 referrals to the counselling service, and there was 10 employees that were referred to CBT. At paragraph 6, that gives details of accidents and incidents that were recorded during the period across the council, and the details are in Appendix 10. And there was 551 accidents and incidents recorded during this period. 536 of them were classed as minor accidents and incidents. There was 3 accidents that resulted in an absence of more than 3 days, and there was 12 accidents that were resulted in an absence of over a week. And there is a joint working group that's looking at accidents and incidents with a particular focus in education, This is obviously a focus that's not only a local issue, but it's also a national issue. And that there is also work ongoing in terms of improving reporting procedures, with an ongoing reminder to managers of the process to encourage them to provide full details in terms of accidents and incidents. At paragraph 7, in terms of discipline, grievance and dignity at work, the details are in Appendix 11. There was 29 disciplinary hearings during the period. There was 3 appeals that were heard. There was 1 grievance that was raised, and there was 1 dignity at work case raised, and there was no referrals for mediation. At paragraph 8, in terms of leavers and exit interviews, the details are in Appendix 13. The turnover for the council for the period was 1%, and of that there was 159 leavers eligible for exit interviews. And of the 159, 53 exit interviews were conducted. In terms of the council-wide position for leavers, there was 325 leavers over the period, and managers indicated that 306 of these positions would be replaced. 3 posts were being filled on a temporary basis. 8 posts were due to end due to a fixed term contract. 6 posts were being left vacant pending a review of the service, and 2 posts will be removed for savings. And finally, at paragraph 9, for the recruitment monitoring, there was 3,669 applications that were received, and there was 3,579 monitoring forms that were completed as part of the recruitment processes. And of the applicants that declared themselves disabled, 1,119 were declared disabled, and of them 64 were shortlisted and 6 were appointed. And in terms of black ethnic minority background, 459 were declared, 96 of them were shortlisted and 5 were appointed. And of the applicants who were veterans, there was 45 that were declared, 25 were shortlisted and no one was appointed. So if I could refer committee back to section 2 within the report and ask that the employment information in terms of the financing for council-wide for the period October to December 2023 be noted. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. We have a question from Grant Ferguson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. I've just got a quick question, if that's all right. On page 56, section 9, with regards to the recruitment monitoring, is it possible for us to have a breakdown, for example, the numbers of the disabled candidates who have maybe recorded that they've got autism? And on page 73, you'll see there's a section there which with the stats, it says that I think what I would like to see is that the number of autism numbers. I think that would be quite an interesting stat to have there, if that's possible.
Thank you, Grant. Eileen, would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, I'll certainly have a look in terms of what's recorded. I'm not sure of the detail around that's recorded in terms of people that would give specific details in terms of their disability, but I'm certainly willing to have a look at that and also moving forward how we capture that level of detail.
Grant, are you happy with that? Okay, thank you.
Yes, great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Questions from Gladys Miller.
Thanks, Chair. On the last bullet point on veterans, we were advised back in June that we'd be given a copy of the strategy for working with veterans, and we're still waiting on this. We were advised that then that we would get it back in December, that we would get it for this committee, meaning today. So I'm wondering, is there a date for this strategy? Because it was my understanding that it was in draft last year.
Thanks, Gladys. Appreciate that. Eileen, do you have an answer?
There's obviously been a lot of work ongoing in terms of veterans, but I know that the council had just recently submitted a bid in terms of to get the kind of gold status in terms of the veteran award, and that that has to be submitted by the end of the month. And I think we were awaiting the outcome of that before we would feed into the strategy. But there's many strands, and it's not just about recruitment. It's about how veterans are accessing other council services that are there. So certainly, Councillor, what I'll do is I'll go back and get an update of what the status of that is, because I've not got the detail in front of me right now. Thanks.
No, that would be good, Eileen. Thanks. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Gladys. The next speaker is Mo Razak.
It's going to page 73 again, and looking at the success rate for disabled is 9% from interviews, and from applicants it's 5%. And the black and ethnic minority are similar. There's 1% appointed from applicants and 5% appointed. And with the veterans, there's none, 0 appointed from 25 interviewed and 44 applicants. Now then you compare it to the other one, and it's 32% interviewed, 7% appointed and 21% appointed from interviews. There seems to be disparities in the figures. I've already pointed this out before, and I just wanted to make a point of pointing this out again, that the disparities are still continuing.
Thanks, Mo. Eileen?
I appreciate that this has been raised already. I would only say that the purpose of the recruitment monitoring is to have an ongoing look at trends and analysis. There is work that's ongoing, not only through the personnel team, but also through our equalities groups in terms of looking at this, and we'll continue to monitor it. Thank you.
Mo, are you happy with that answer? Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Yes and no, it's been a number of years now, Chair, this has been happening, and I think there was work done in the equity groups that we had set up, and there's still ongoing work being done, but the pace of it is starting to alarm me.
Okay, Mo, can I suggest we take this offline and have a separate meeting and try and get that resolved? If there are no more questions, I'd like to move the report. Okay, thank you. We all agreed? Okay, moving on to item 9, which is the Treasury Management Activity Quarter 3, and that's pages 75 to 82, and I'd like to invite Jackie Taylor to speak.
Thank you, Chair. This is the third quarter report on Treasury Management Activity, taking us to the end of the calendar year last year. Usual format for the report, at section 5 we cover our debt position, and you can see on page 78 at the top of the page the table that shows our position with borrowing. We haven't taken any borrowing yet this financial year. Instead, cash balances that we hold have been used to fund capital spend, and borrowing to replace that will be taken when required. Section 6 covers our investment activity, so this is in relation to where we deposit our cash. On page 77 at table 2, we show where we have deposited our cash, and following similar trends to previous reports, our money is placed in the Treasury's debt management account deposit facility and in high street banks, namely the Bank of Scotland and the Royal Bank of Scotland, as well as making deposits in other local authorities. Where we deposit our money and the management of risk around that is covered at section 7. And on page 78, you can see in the tables on that page the credit ratings for the agencies that we place our money with. And as we've reported previously, the vast majority of our money are made with counterparties of very high credit quality, namely other local authorities and the UK Government. Section 8 of the report picks up our investment plans for the next quarter, and we're reporting that we will continue in the same vein as we have previously. And section 9 picks up our Treasury Management indicators. We're required to report on 2 indicators around our debt position, and I'm reporting that we're operating within the limits that have been set. So in terms of recommendations, we're asking that the content of the report's noted. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Jackie. Do we have any questions? I don't see any questions, so I'd like to move the report. Agreed. Okay, and moving on to items for decision, and item 10 is revenue and collection and approval for write-offs, and that's in pages 83 to 88, and I'd like to invite Craig Ferguson to speak to the report.
Thank you, Chair. The report advises committee of the collection performance to the end of January, gives an update in respect to the business rates incentivisation scheme, and seeks committee's agreement for the approval for write-offs. Section 4 details current collection performance with council tax, non-domestic rates and sundry debt performance all currently ahead of target. Section 5 details the collection performance in respect of arrears with council tax, non-domestic rates ahead of target and sundry debt marginally behind. Section 6 is an update in respect to the business rates incentivisation scheme, and I'll draw members' attention to section 6.3 that confirms of the reinstatement of the scheme for 23-24 and 24-25 and the targets as advised by Scottish Government of 1.2% and 1.1%. Since initially receiving notification of these targets, it was clear that Council had the highest target for 23-24 across Scottish councils and the joint highest for 24-25. We then clarified that with Scottish Government, and believe as a result of that clarification, Government now came back and indicated that there will be further revision to those targets detailed at 6.3. So Government advised the targets for the Council for 23-24 and 24-25 will be 0.9% for both years, and we're expecting formal confirmation of that in the coming days. So the committee can just note, please, the revision to the targets as indicated at 6.3. Year-to-date performance is currently 1%, which therefore be in excess of the target of 0.9% as just updated. Section 7 details the proposals for write-off, covering the usual income streams, including council tax, former tenant rent arrears, and also sundry debt. The Prepare Committee back to the recommendations. The performance and collection levels is noted. The current position in respect to the incentivisation scheme is noted, and bullet point 3, the rest as listed, be approved. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Craig. Do we have any questions? I'm not seeing any questions. I'd like to approve the report. Agreed. Thank you. I'd like to move on to item 11, which is Communication and Strategy Services, pages 89 to 92, and I'd like to invite Paul Manning to speak to the report.
Thanks, Chair. So what the paper tells you under the purpose section is that what I'm looking for is to request committee approval for a change in the management lines for the Communication and Strategy Services. So this is the services that sit under Tom Little, and they would report directly to me in my new role as Chief Executive. So the section on proposal picks that up, and it's suggested that the Communications and Strategy Service become part of the Office of the Chief Executive, and with management lines reporting directly into myself in my new role. And 4.2 explains why that would be the case, or why it should be the case. And part of the point that's made there is that that's really formalising what the situation is currently in practice and why we would look to do that. On the second page of the paper, the point's made that this is an arrangement that does happen in other places. It's probably the most common arrangement for a communications and strategy service, is reporting direct into the Chief Executive. Section 4.4 sort of brings the proposal to a head. So it's proposed that the entire communications and strategy services moves from finance and corporate resources, as in reporting to the Director of Finance and Corporate Resources, and moves directly to reporting to myself through the Chief Executive's office. In terms of things like workforce information and the financial information that would come to this committee, that wouldn't change because all of that comes through finance and corporate at present anyway. And that feeds on into the two sections you've got there on employee implications and financial implications. Things would remain as they are in those respects. So, on the recommendations, it looks for noting of the content and that those changes that I've described in presenting the paper be approved. So, again, Chair, happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Gladys?
Thank you, Chair. It's not a question, it's just a comment to say that it's such a sensible move, changing the reporting structure for Communications and Strategy Service. As Paul indicated, most other authorities operate in this manner. So I think it's a good move and I certainly approve it.
Thank you very much for that, Gladys. Is there any other questions? I can't see any. I'll approve the report. All agreed? Thank you. I have no urgent business. Sorry. No. I'm nearly forgetting about Tom Little there. So items for noting. Item 12 is a Finance and Corporate Resource Plan. Q2 Progress Report, pages 93 to 106. And I'd like to invite Tom Little to speak to that.
Thanks, Chair. Nothing personal. As you were saying, this is the regular update on progress made against the resource plan, in this case to the period up to the end of September 2023. There are two appendices with this report, which is the usual format. And the first provides you with a reminder of the resource plan outcomes that have been developed to support the work of the Council Plan as a whole. Appendix 2 provides the key information here, which is a report against all our resource plan measures. And that's summarised for you on the table at 5.2, which is page 94 of your papers. And you'll see, using the familiar BRAG format, we have 27 measures showing it blue or green, with 2 ambers, and we have 0 reds on this occasion. The report goes on to list at 5.3 some of the achievements of the resource during the period involved, which contributed to delivery of the Council Plan Connect. Skipping forward beyond all those, at 5.4 you'll see, that's on page 96 of your papers, there are no measures classified at red, and those would have been picked up at that section if there had been any. Of the 2 ambers, you'll find them on page 101, which is on liquor licensing, and page 102 on processing times for community care grants. The report recommendations are essentially to note the contents. That's Appendix 2, in particular, the performance measurements and also the achievements and areas identified for improvement, which, as I said, are none on this occasion. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Tom. Elaine McDougall.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for the report. Just a minor clarification for me, really, Tom. So it's on the Appendix 1, page 98. It's just where you have some commentary added against the various categories of Connect outcomes. And I see that a few of them are blank. Is that, for example, health and wellbeing, etc., is that because they're not relevant for this resource, or is there another explanation? Thank you.
All the Council Plan outcomes are relevant for all resources, but obviously some resources pick up in particular on certain aspects of them. And none of our resource plan outcomes reflect those outcomes. That's why those areas are blank. You'll see there's a large section under achieving the plan. That tends to be the area of our outcomes that gets most attention in this report, as opposed to other resources which will have specific ones under the Council Plan outcomes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. If there are no other questions, I'd like to move the report. Agreed? Okay, and this time, item 13 is no urgent business. And I'd like to thank all the members and the staff for their attendance, and I'll declare the meeting closed.